my very favorite is the 4-year-old who came home from daycare and said, Mom, I'm going to need you to print another of those charts out because I need to take it to school because at nap time, nobody knows about their sleep jobs.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Welcome back to the show, Toddler Tribe. Any tired parents out there? Kids not sleeping through? Kids not sleeping at all? Today, my guest is Jessica Bryant. She's an internationally recognized pediatric sleep strategist, keynote speaker, and founder of Sleep Happy Consulting, and a Better Sleep Council representative. She helps parents like you who are tired and overwhelmed learn the steps to prioritizing a well-rested and connected home so your kids can grow into happy, resilient children. Today, we're talking specifically about kids who slept really well when they were little, and you thought, I'll never be that parent. And all of a sudden, they hit a milestone or they became a toddler and their sleep fell apart. Today, Jessica's here to share with us why that happens and some really insightful strategies for how to regroup and get your kids back on track. Welcome to the show, Jessica. We are here to talk about sleep, which is one of the most sought after topics from my listeners, but we're going to talk about it in a little bit of a different way today. Can't wait to get started.
I'm excited to be here, Cara.
So, you and I, when we read through each other's bios, we super vibed. We were like, oh my gosh, kindergarten teacher, wait, nanny, preschool curriculum. Yes, all the things. And yet we have both landed in a space where we find that empowering parents with what they need to understand their young humans, unique people they brought into the world, is the most important way to start a successful human experience. And we're going to do that around the sleep idea today.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
So, I've talked a lot about infant sleep on the show. We know that routines are important. We know that setting the stage early. We know that setting the environment is really important. I asked you to come on and talk specifically about what happens when you had a really, quote, good sleeper or somebody who sleep soothed, sleep trained, whatever your terminology is, really easily as a baby, and then hit 1 year old, hit 18 months old, and it all fell apart. And you said, yes, I can talk about that.
Yes, that is a great question because I feel like parents that have children that are sleeping well and very consistently, and so they're in a rhythm and it's just, it's on repeat. They don't have to worry or stress about it. And so they've just got this pattern in the back of their head and they can kind of move on to all the other things that children's development changes and schedules and things like that. And where I see it a lot is definitely around the time a child is transitioning from the crib to a bed, or oftentimes, around 1. But I think one of the things that's hard for parents is there's not a lot of information about sleep out there. Yes, there's lots of information about it, but there isn't these little tidbits of how it can change developmentally or little blips in the road that really for parents who are used to the 10 to 12 hours of easy bedtime and great night's sleep, like it's just like their child hasn't fussed or cried or voiced any sort of new opinion at bedtime in so long, it catches a parent off guard. and they just instantly panic to what other parents who are never sleeping well talk about all the time. Like, I've totally messed it up. It's all my fault. When what I see in my practice is that it could be the child is developing a new skill, language is blossoming. It could be their sleep needs change. Especially with those kiddos who are like, I hate to even mention it, but the 1%ers that take 3-hour naps and then sleep 11 hours at night. It's like overnight they change and they don't need 14 hours of sleep a day. And it just throws off everything. So I think some of that just normal sleep communication, seeing your child as you're moving towards bedtime, and they aren't as tired as normal. They aren't having the normal cues, and they seem rested. So when you first see that resistance, or I don't want to go to bed, and then they're smarter because they're also been listening to words, and what does this word mean? And how does mom react or dad react when I say this statement? And then so they just start their cognitive development of testing just to see, maybe I'll have an ice cream sundae at bedtime. Might happen. Let me try, whether it's colder water or hotter water. So I think some of that is just the knowledge of how sleep changes in terms of sleep needs change and how that can throw you off. And then also you just haven't thought about it in a while. And so it freaks you out.
There's something that's just so uniquely true about that, right? As parents, even though we know they're growing, even though we know they're changing, when we hit a space that just feels good, we're like, check box, did it. Don't have to conquer this one again. And then all of a sudden it presents itself in a very different way. And we say, wait, but we did this already.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to parenting.
It's so true. So one of the things that I was hearing when you were talking is that child who came into the world capable of feeling safe, calm, and soothed just by the experience of being in that routine and in that crib, and had no trouble. They're evolving, right? So when we hear kids cry as infants, we know that we are responding to one of 3 or 4 things that's keeping them from settling into that safe, calm, soothed body that can fall asleep on its own. And what I love to say, fall back to sleep by themselves when they wake up in the night, right? That they're practicing that skill. What about when these kids are older, when their cognition has leaped a bit, when they're crying? And now it's longer stretches. You've got this 18-month-old who all of a sudden is just screaming so loud that you're sure something must be desperately wrong, taking those big gasps of air, making you worried that you should run in and make sure they're safe. When they're smarter and they cry differently, how do you know how to respond to that?
I always encourage parents to pause and just think a second. If it is your child's pain cry, if it's a cry that you haven't heard in a long time and you're just unsure, trust your gut. Go right in and assess and check and console and make sure there isn't something off. There isn't a safety issue. They aren't sick. They aren't anything like that. And then the next day it's like, was that a one-off? And then it happens again. And it's like, okay, let's reflect. They aren't sick. They aren't, their bedtime routine was normal. They didn't go to bed overtired. Are they developing a new skill? Cognitively, language, for the younger kiddos, learning to walk, those kind of things. But that's usually not happening in the middle of the night. Did they sleep too much during the day? Did they not sleep during the day? Is there anything that you can just reflect on to think, oh, that's right. We got to bed super late after a super stimulating day, and I went in last night and it didn't really help, so maybe I'll change the strategy. Or maybe I'll give them longer time. And then the next day it's like, how do they feel in the morning? Do I need to adjust nap or quiet time to like work yourself back? It just hits you in the gut because you're like, oh, you haven't thought about these things, like you said. So it's kind of a checklist of just reflecting back. And sometimes maybe it's something that happened, at school, or especially for older kids. But generally, it has to do with sleep debt or timing, whether we either went to bed undertired or overtired, and we are just, changing. We need less sleep and we needed more night sleep because we didn't sleep that day. But it's usually, if we can start there, that's a place to start, to just see if there's a pattern coming, or I think it's developmental and we need to talk about it.
Oh, there's so much here. I'm just excited to ask you all the questions. So you talked right there about that self-aware, that self-consciousness moment that the parents need to have to take a breath, stop, assess, ask themselves some questions to choose their next action. I always love the idea of empowering these toddlers with the same skills, with the same first thought when they wake up in the middle of the night.
Yes.
Why am I awake? What woke me up? Am I okay? Is my baby doll going to solve it? Will my pacifier solve it? Like literally
coping skills,
cognitive problem solving 101 for 1-year-olds. How do you support parents to teach kids those things?
So what I do in my practice is I wrap everything around sleep jobs. And as I've listened to some of your other podcasts, you've had this conversation with parents in the past. And any time that, I usually start a conversation with, what is your child's sleep EQ? And it is amazing how many parents of 8, 9, 10-month-olds can't answer that question. And then another thing that throws parents off too is when I introduce how to talk about sleep jobs, and I'm saying, I give an example of how to have a conversation, kind of a script, that the parent can take and tailor, but it's usually very foreign. And they're like, you're talking to my 13-month-old like this? And I'm like, yes, let's give it a second. But it's, the parents say, mommy and daddy, mommy and nanny, daddy and, caregiver. It's our job to make sure you sleep healthy. And then we state the problem. Super simple. Right now, we're not sleeping healthy. We want to keep it on the short. Yes. And then the big question that I'm always like, the rest doesn't matter, but changing your tone and getting on eye level with the toddler and saying, what is your job at bedtime? And just posing the question. And developmentally, obviously, I don't expect a 13-month-old to respond. They could giggle and run off to grab the next toy, and the conversation is over. And that's okay. And parents are kind of like, okay, weirdo. But I want them communicating that confidence to their child that they believe in them. And, many of these families that I'm working at this point, they don't have great sleep routines. They're changing something. And so this is all new and they aren't sleeping well. They're waking up multiple times a night, or their bedtimes are taking 2 hours. So this isn't the same kind of child that has been sleeping great and something has changed, but you can use it for anyone. Mm-hmm. And so that's that first tip of, I have confidence in you. And then that toddler hears, oh, I have a job? Ears alert, ears alert. And then I have a chart that I send to the families that they can use it to make their own, or they can use mine. And it breaks down the jobs. It's lay quietly, close your eyes, stay in your bed, stay in your room until the sun comes up, the light turns green, mommy comes in, whatever the family's wake time signal is. And especially for my young toddlers, we're only talking about one thing on the list. And so maybe my 2.5, 3, 4-year-olds, we're talking about all 5. But That way, you're setting expectations, you're making them feel a part of the team, you're empowering them. And then typically the parent feels better having the right response that matches the expectation. And I think sometimes that's really difficult. So that's one of the ways I like to start dropping in the coping skills that you were talking about, because so many children are conditioned, like if mom is laying down with them in the bed and until they fall asleep, and then in the middle of the night, they wake up and their environment has changed, their very first reaction is, where's mom? You know, they're not going to think, oh, will my pacifier fix it? Or, oh, let me straighten my blankets and get comfy. Let me tell my dolly about what the friend did at recess, you know, or sing my favorite song. Those coping skills get missed because a lot of times parents feel like they have to do it for the child. And oh my goodness, it's such a great building block.
Ugh, I love this. I mean, it's this connected parenting methodology that we're both using, and you're using it specifically to elicit some learning around that sense of self and sleep. And I can do these things. What I find really funny is that we walk into it already stressed, right? So, I mean, end of pregnancy. What does the world tell you? You're never going to get any sleep again. You better sleep now, like somehow you can bank it, which you can't. Just be prepared. Part of being a good parent is being sleep deprived in the beginning. It's a badge of honor. Where are we rechanging this narrative, bringing in a new perspective that says, your kids are capable of so much more than you think they are. Mm-hmm. Let's give them an opportunity to show that.
Yes. Everything. Yes. And what happens is that I hear this very skeptical voice in the background, and then I will have parents reach back out and say, my son told the checker at the grocery store about his sleep jobs and how well he did it. FaceTimed the grandparents and told. My very favorite is the 4-year-old who came home from daycare and said, Mom, I'm going to need you to print another of those charts out because I need to take it to school because at nap time, nobody knows about their sleep jobs.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love when the kids are showing the parents that this works. Hey, Mama. Cara here, just hopping in to say how impressed I am by you and your dedication to raise a whole child who will be world and school ready. You know that parenting is a job, a J-O-B job, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to know what you don't know. And that's what I'm here for. My Transforming the Toddler Years course is currently closed, but I am accepting one-on-one clients who are looking to make massive transformation inside their home. If you're feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, and that you're in survival mode all day, every day, but you wake up determined to be intentional, calm, and connected so that you can help your child thrive, I can help. Schedule a complimentary connection call with the link in the show notes to share your parenting journey and your current struggles. Let's see how we can work together to help you transform the toddler years. Okay, so I have to ask this question because for me, in my work with parents, it's very heart-led. It's very, mindset work. It's parenting personal development, right? And so it's identity driven. And one of the things I hear parents say all the time when they have a new baby is, oh my gosh, she is a miracle sleeper. She slept through the night from 3 weeks old. She's such a good baby. Or this child refuses to sleep day, night, or being held otherwise. Such a hard baby. And I feel like that identity label starts to grow very early on. So how can you reframe this for parents to detach from good baby, hard baby to what that child's actually experiencing?
That's a really great question. One of the things I always say is there's no bad sleepers. Is that all humans crave sleep. All babies crave sleep, but they have different needs, just like you and I have different sleep needs. And so I wonder if this would make sense. But in my early childhood intervention work I was a case manager. And so I worked with a dietitian, an OT, a PT, a counselor, speech therapist, all for the birth to 3 population. And in my head, I kind of came up with this, that every child, and granted every adult too, but I look at it as Swiss cheese. They have holes, right? And I think I learned this the most from the occupational therapist because of the understanding we're sensory beings was something new for me, and obviously something I didn't study fully in child development. And so whereas one child might have 10 holes and one child has 2 or 3 at any given moment, it's figuring out that communication that you mentioned and what they need to be successful from you as the parent. They need you to be consistent with the bedtime, or they need you to be home at nap time, or they need a special bouncing, shushing, patting, or swinging, or, it's what are the check engine lights on your child and how do they differ? And some things you can't fill, you can't fill, but as parents, I want to figure out, and even as a sleep strategist for them, I want to figure out how we set them up for sleep success. And that is filling those holes during the day. That can be different from child to child, and then also helping the parent just know what's normal. And sleep is possible.
Yes.
If you want it. If you like to get up 3 times a night, that's great. If you don't, that's also great. You don't have to like what you're, seeing on the internet or in your feed, and it just allow you to stress and tell yourself that your baby's a bad sleeper and you're a bad parent and all of those things.
Ugh, so good. So let's bring it back to these older kids, right? They're 18 months, they're 2 years old, and I work with a family right now who has 18-month-old twins. And I saw that, and I've nannied for multiple sets of twins over the years. And so the social psychology piece of it just makes me geek out. This is so cool. And we worked on sleep early on when they were young, and we solved it, everything. So these kids grew up with a nanny and now have transitioned to full-time childcare for the social emotional interaction with same age kids. And all of a sudden, for one of them, they stopped sleeping through the night. So when we have major transition going on, whether it is we're moving out of the home and into a different childcare setting, or we're moving out of the 1-year-old room and into the 2-year-old room, and now we have a new set of peers and a new set of teachers, or our nanny left and a new one came, right? A new adult. How does transformation of your daily environment affect these little people's sleep?
For some children, it really affects them. And also, it kind of depends. I say this when a new sibling is added as well. People kind of expect it maybe in the first few days, but then it's kind of 3 or 4 weeks later, But with those new transitions, children really crave the things that they know, because the transition is new and they feel out of control in that. Versus their bedtime routine is often something that is the same each day and is comforting. And so what I see is during transitions, parents who have never struggled with the bedtime routine or waking up in the middle of the night, suddenly it starts happening and they haven't considered the transition. And so they start changing the bedtime routine to also with everything else changing that's outside of the child's control. And that just throws the child completely off because not even their bedtime routine is consistent. So they might have tested something new or a delay tactic or cried more or taken a long time to go to sleep, but they were looking for that fence that it was, no, another book is not an option tonight. We can read that at breakfast, or it's not okay to run around the house and leave your bedroom after I've tucked you. They're looking for that safety net to come and say, this is not the routine. This is outside of the predictability. No, this isn't an option, those kind of things. So the child can be like, oh, at least my bedtime is the same, and I can count on that and I can feel that safety and I know I can predict what's coming next in my bedtime routine. Whereas I might not be at my new school, be able to predict how in the afternoon, a new caregiver comes and she has this expectation.
What about the middle of the night? Now, I've had parents in the past would say, okay, so I went back in, because the middle of the night they're up. I went in, I tried, I soothed, didn't work. I had to go back in. I redid our bedtime routine middle of the night. Where do you stand on that side of the fence?
I don't recommend a restart. I recommend that once it's bedtime and we've cuddled and we've connected and we've had our closure of the day and we've tucked in, then we are kind of nighttime parent. Not so fun parent, matter of fact parent, calm parent, but robotic parent. So I am here to help with any needs, but I am not here to be a playmate, or I hear something, well, he just wants to party and he wants to get up and he wants to, I'm like, not options in the night. You need to be sleeping. So I don't like restarting the bedtime routine. If you have to go in, somebody needs to go to the bathroom or it's something new and you've checked and consoled and it's time to go back to sleep. You can look at a book and lay quietly until sleep comes back on. Or why don't you tell your lovey about your favorite food or something like that. For my older kiddos, my 3 and 4s, my favorite thing to do is put like a little notebook, dollar store notebook and maybe a map pencil. And if they have any kind of temporary light that they can use, not necessarily a night light, but something that, there's a bear and you squeeze it and it comes on, or a glowworm or something that's low light, but it gives them that autonomy that if they're waiting for sleep to come back on and it's taking a while and they have a thought or a dream, positive word only, they can write it, draw it, scribble it, mark it in their paper, and they can show mommy, daddy, or grandma in the morning. That way they feel like their feeling is validated and they start to build that coping skill that I still have to stay in my room because it is rest time. I don't have to be asleep, but I have to be quiet and resting and respecting everybody else's rest.
I love that phrase, when sleep comes back on, right? It tells their cognitive brain it's currently off, but it shows that they know that things that are off can come back on. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Jessica, you are such a wealth of information, and I have about 10 more questions that have popped into my head, but we're running low on time for this episode. Would you be willing to come back and talk to us again?
Yes, I would love that. I love being here on behalf of the Better Sleep Council. So that sounds great. Thank you.
Tell us for today, where can people find you? Do you have something they can go download and just kind of like get started with those bare bones of, can I get myself set up for success?
Yes. You can find me at Sleep Happy on Instagram, and you can visit my website, which I offer a free sleep audit. So if you have questions about sleep or you're wondering what normal sleep looks like for your child or yourself, you can schedule a free call. And I also have a download for children 4 months to 6 years that is sleep milestones. We're always talking about gross motor milestones, but who's talking about self-help and sleep milestones? And so you can download that and see what's normal for your child's age. And if you have any questions, then we can talk more about it.
Amazing.
And that's www.sleephappyconsulting.com.
Yes. And of course, we will have that link in the show notes, easy to click to get where you need to be. And Jessica's kind enough today to give you a code so you can get $10 off any purchase on her site. And you're going to need to check the show notes for that code too. So Jessica, I look forward to having you back to share more wisdom with us. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
And until our next episode, all of you amazing, conscious, collaborative parents out there, you know what to do. Stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.